But during that time, I was expanding and I kept expanding. And then when I was on my own, the universe just had me held. I had my own business. I was afraid to be by myself. I was afraid to not have a partner. I was doing it myself anyway. What was the difference? But I have a partner. I have the universe. I have always been held. And the more that I just continue to trust in that, the synchronicities that come my way. My partner, my business partner now was my client for 10 years. She left her job to join and become a partner with me in my other business. I have two businesses. And we have grown so much. Like when you have love for the opportunity and for yourself, and you move through, it's love or fear, love or fear, love or fear, love. It's always love or fear. You can't lose when you choose love. You just can't.
Welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I am going to introduce you to my special guest. We have Pamela Downes, and she is a creative intuitive and trance channeler with over 20 years of experience working with clients to define their soul's purpose. She has dedicated her life to channeling messages from her guides to support humanity through her spiritual awakening. She is a skilled guide who helps you discover your soul's fullest potential. Pamela is also the co-founder of Spirit Calling, an online community-based platform that provides support, guidance, and education for individuals navigating through their awakening journey. So welcome, Pamela.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be here with you and support you in your project.
Thank you.
Have a conversation
I love it.
About spirit. We love talking about spirit.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit. Well, I love to share how I meet everybody.
Yeah.
And I feel like you and I had quite the interesting, divine connection.
I was called to you.
Yes.
I was called to you. Yes.
So we live in a town over from each other.
Yes.
And you happened to come into my gym and saw all the cool things, our altar that we had over there. And you're like, what is this place?
Yeah.
It's more than a gym.
Yeah. Well, I was called to you. I was introduced to you a year prior.
You were?
When we met. And I had a call with you on the phone. And I was seeking.
That's right.
It didn't feel right at the time. It didn't feel right. It wasn't time.
I remember that now.
And then I was reflecting on this recently, actually, because of our meeting later today. And then suddenly a year later, it was time. Like I felt drawn, and I knew that there was a reason that I needed to, and it wasn't even you. Like you weren't even in the picture the second time that we spoke. I was called, I made the appointment, and by way of Brian, I met you.
Yes.
And the moment we met, it was like,
and I really do feel like that connection was meant to happen because you and I've told people I own a gym, but I am a very, very flexible there. And so the times that we've had our conversations together, I really felt like it was us getting to know soul family and like the projects that we're supposed to work on. And you introduced me to Spirit Calling, which I'm so grateful to be a member of that space. And it's so nice to have people like literally in my backyard that I know I can go to if I need anything. So really grateful for having you in my life. So thank you.
I'm really grateful for having you in my life. So
yes,
seeing you in the portal, even though we say that the portal is our online community, which it is, it's our family of connected spirits, of people who are going through their spiritual awakening. And it is like where, you're in my backyard. We're all in each other's backyards. It's so accessible, and it's a lovely, safe space for us to be able to explore and learn and share and contribute and, help support each other.
Absolutely. So let's go back. Let's go back in time, wherever you would like to start, where you feel like was relevant for where you are now. Can you do that for us? Just give us a little background of who you are. And then we'll I want to talk a little bit about your spiritual awakening and some journeys that you've gone on. And then we can wrap up to Spirit Calling or whatever, because we're going to come back again with you and your partner, Lisa. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I think about my spiritual awakening, I think about, we always have a clearer vision when we look back, and we can reflect on milestones in our life and experiences that we had, ways that we showed up and dealt with experiences. And I was a musician, classically trained as a kid, and I was an artist. They were my two strong skills that I really reveled in and found joy in. I had a difficult childhood with a father who was an alcoholic and abusive. And I just recently in the community, we worked on something called our soul's resume, and we identified different times in our life. And I contributed music and art as part of my soul's journey, as part of my awakening process, because I was always in front of my piano. And I used to say I escaped, but what I was doing was connecting to spirit. I wasn't escaping, I was connecting to spirit. So when a creative, a writer, a musician, an artist, when people run, they're going into that, they call it the zone. They have a vibe, you're getting connected to spirit. So I think, way back when I was doing that.
You were already skilled at like tapping into that flow,
And I
feminine
didn't know it.
space.
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't know it. And as an artist and musician, I used to call myself a super empath. And there were people in my life or, people that were family members or different experiences in my life where I had a hard time managing energy. I didn't know how to. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was, why I reacted, why I experienced things. And I remember when I first got married, I was married for 16 and a half years. In the very beginning of my marriage, even though I was married to somebody who was the time I was deeply in love with, we want to create a life with them. No one gets married wanting to get a divorce one day. You get married to create a life, to have children, to share your experiences with. I went on Zoloft for anxiety. Well, I didn't. That's what the doctor said I had.
Right. That you had
so
to
what
do.
I was doing was trying to figure out how to manage energy, and I'm sure that a lot of people have that experience.
Especially the young ones.
Especially
they have a lot of neurons going on in there that are still haven't, worked themselves out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as I was getting older, as I was having children, as I was going through the routines that I was brought up within, raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, Italian family, we go to Catholic church, we baptize our children, we go to CCD, I was suddenly not resonating with things. I suddenly wasn't understanding if the Catholic Church was for me. And then there was a lot of guilt-based ideology, and there were a lot of things that just weren't resonating with me. What was happening was my spirit was expanding, and I was asking the big questions like, who are we? Why are we here? What's my purpose on this planet? And I remember thinking, if God is love, how is God going to sit in judgment of me and tell me whether or not I'm going to have eternal life, or I'm going to go to, in damnation, hell, and burn in hell? And I'm like, that's a contradiction of love that doesn't resonate with me. And that's how it started.
Right.
That's how it started. And I pulled my kids out of CCD, and I was like, I don't know what I believe in, but I can't raise my children to believe in something that I don't believe in. So
yeah, good for you. I would, I'm so funny that you said that, because I wasn't raised, non-denominational, and my parents, came from Catholic and Presbyterian, but they're like, we're going to do whatever we wanted. And I always felt like I was disconnected because everyone was in CCD. But I would ask questions to the woman that raised me, who was Baptist, like, what happens if we just didn't know about all this stuff? We're just going to go to hell? I just didn't understand that. She's like, well, they would have to have someone save them. And I'm like, I just don't know. In my heart, I'm like, I don't think God would want to do that.
No, I know. And I used to say as a kid, like, I understand someone has to pay to have a piece of planet Earth. Like, who owned planet Earth? I remember as a kid saying, why do we work 5 days and have off 2 days? Like, who decided that? Like, there were always, like,
that's a really good question.
Who's creating all these ways of being for our planet? I reflect on that now, but what happened, Danielle, is my father, who was sober from I was in 4th grade. He became sober. He started drinking again right when I had my first baby. I had a 2-year-old, and I was pregnant with my second. And I couldn't believe that he went back to alcohol, and he chose alcohol instead of life because his addiction, just ruled him. And I remember when he died, when he took his last breath, my brother, my mother, and I were all around him, and I watched his physical body remain, and the essence and the spirit of who he was leave. And I just couldn't understand where he went, what happened, where did it go? And what happened was, my whole world, this is a big part of my spiritual awakening. My whole world changed. The recession happened. My husband lost his job. I had my own business. Marketing was cut. We lost our home. We lost our retirement. We lost our friends. We lost everything in our world. And so everything I knew was thrown up in the air, came back down in a whole new way. And at that time, that's when I started like understanding like what is life after death. And my dad died. I got invited to a spiritual gallery, a psychic medium gallery, and there was this man there. He came in, he walked in, and he said, "Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. I might come over to you." And he came over to me and he said, "I might say, did your father died of kidney failure?" Or I might go over to this. And I was like, "That's how my father died." And then he came back over to me and said, "We're going to get started because your father's here." He said, "Your father," and I was like, you're just in awe. I had never experienced anything like that before. And he said, "Your father's here. He wants to tell you how talented you are. He never told you how talented you are." Now, I was extremely talented with piano, as gifted. And, um, you know, my father was not a loving person. I did not have a relationship with him. It was more of a fear-based, like it was terrible. And
Sorry.
he said, "Thank you," but it was all part of my
Yeah,
awakening
it's part of the journey.
and his journey and his healing and my growth. Um, but he said, "I want to tell you that your father says that he's sorry and that he loves you." From that moment on, it was done. There was life after death. There's no way you can turn your back on it. I was on this, I had to devour everything that I could.
Mhm.
I was on this path. I was in the library, I was in the metaphysical stores. I was everywhere trying to understand. And I started meditating. And I
Were you
started,
were you open to any of this before? Like, who brought you to this meeting? Did someone drag you in, or were you just like, I think I need to go to
it was
this?
the universe. It was the
Yeah.
universe. I started having all these synchronicities happen. I'm telling you, I could be on this podcast for 3 hours.
We
More.
could.
More.
5D,
Talk to me
5D
about
all
it.
day. 5D.
Yeah. Like I remember we were trying to sell our house in a recession, in the worst real estate market ever. We're trying to sell our house. I had my house on the market and something said, "Rent it, rent it." I just heard it. And like I wanted to get the freaking thing off of my back. It was
Right.
killing us.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "You know what? Let's rent it." Well, someone came out of the blue. They were moving up. They were going to rent it for a year. Let's give it a try. It was like he stayed there. I could leave my baby grand piano in there. Like everything
Everything
was
was there.
perfect. That we moved into this tiny little house. I had one man living in my big house, and I was in this tiny little house with a dog, kids, a husband. Like it was, but I started listening to Abraham Hicks, and I
Mm-hmm.
started calling it my gift house. Like I started calling it my little gift because my perception changed. I used to meet people and they would go, "How are you?" And I say, "Oh my God, Billy lost his job. We had to leave our home. Marketing got cut." I flipped it upside down. I said, "Oh, it's amazing. I have my business. I didn't lose my business in the recession. It's amazing. We are living in this little house. We're all like spending time together. I can walk the kids to school." I started shifting, which meant my vibration started raising. And all these synchronicities started happening. The year lease was over, a doctor came out of nowhere. Another doctor came out of nowhere. "I want to sign it for a year." It was like we wound up carrying this house, selling it in a better market, making enough money to buy the next house, like when the time came.
That's
And
great.
yeah, it's really cool.
Love
But
those stories. I
I
really
know,
do.
yeah, it's cool. But what was happening was as I was expanding and really like listening to my spirit and understanding my intuition and meditating and having all these experiences, I started having more and more contrast with my marriage. I started, and I think this is very typical in couples where sometimes there's an elevation and there's no better or worse than anyone. There's just like you're more expanded. You have
Mhm.
an understanding that's greater than the other person. There was just so much contrast and so much contrast. And I tried for about 4.5, at least 4.5 years. And then
It's really
finally,
hard when someone just can't be
no,
on the same, I want to
no,
say like the same dimensional plane,
yeah,
like you could
yeah,
be in the same room, but that person sees whatever you see from a completely different angle. And it's like, you can't take that away from them, but they're
Yeah.
just not able to see you eye to eye, at least to grow together.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. And I'm realizing this right now in all my partnerships, I'm like the person who is I'm like the thought painter. I'm the one who's the visionary. I'm the one who sees all these steps ahead. And
Mm,
I was trying to explain to him, like, you create your reality. Resonate on the fact that, like, remember the job that you loved and what you did in that job and how it felt. Feel it. Put that frequency out into the universe. Believe that it is there, and you're going to manifest it. It's a fact. It's a
yeah.
fact. And there was just like, it was like banging, banging, banging my head against the wall. And finally, I was like, I have to move forward in love for myself and my future and the opportunity that I can create for myself. It was the most excruciating experience. I remember feeling so stifled and alone, but knowing I had to do it. It took me a full year to have the courage to do it. And then I finally did it. And it's the best thing that I ever did. I also chose to move forward in love, to be and represent who I wanted and how I wanted us to be in front of our children and everything. And it was hard, but we did it well. And he's a lovely person, and he tries his very best to, do the best for our
Best that he
children
can.
and
Yeah.
as we can. Like my youngest one is graduating high school now, so I think, I've had friends say, you guys are amazing, and I think that we handled it really well. But during that time, I was expanding and I kept expanding. And then when I was on my own, the universe just had me held. I had my own business. I was afraid to be by myself. I was afraid to not have a partner. I was doing it myself anyway. What was the difference? But I have a partner. I have universe. I have always been held. And the more that I just continue to trust in that, the synchronicities that come my way. My business partner now was my client for 10 years. She left her job to join and become a partner with me in my other business. I have two businesses. And we have grown so much. Like, when you have love for the opportunity and for yourself, and you move through, it's love or fear, love or fear, love or fear, love. It's always love or fear. You can't lose when you choose love. You just can't. And
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
So, well, first, two things. I would say, when did your breakup or your divorce happen? What year?
December of 2014. And then
Yeah,
we were
you were early. Like, I feel like
divorced.
what happened to you
Yeah.
was like masses happened in 2020, where people
Yeah.
were forced to sit
Yes.
really with the relationship because we were locked down. We had to
Yeah.
be with each other. And because basically what you described, so many people were at that point where they're like, we just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this and I'm, really my vibrations here and I'm expanding and this person's
Yeah.
stuck in fear and watching the news and upset,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. And another question with that, would you say that it's harder to go through what you need to work on before you do it? Like, remember you said it took you a year to actually step into it? Do you feel like,
That's my process.
and I feel do you
Yeah.
feel like your process, it's the harder beforehand, like almost like preparing before it
Well,
actually happens?
I think, like, I don't know. When you have two little kids, it's freaking hard. You
Oh
you
my
just
God.
you have to make sure you're doing it the right way. And I was scared,
Yeah.
but I'm not. I don't take as I'm more awake now. I'm not the
Yeah.
same person I was in 2014. It's almost 10 years ago. Um, but because of that, Danielle, like, my spiritual awakening was able to be freely open to me because I wasn't being stifled. I was creating my life, and I started doing yoga and I started meditating, all the things I think a lot of people do to try and find spirituality. But then these synchronicities started happening. I got invited to, and I always listen to my spirit. I have a knowing. I've always had a knowing. Now I'm a psychic intuitive trance channeler. So it's like, I'm like, I really have a knowing now. But but
I love it.
I was like, I have a knowing. Like, it was like, I think I have a knowing, and then that's your intuition, and that's like trusting in it. And I remember I went on this Reiki. I never wanted to do Reiki. I did trade with this woman, and I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I want to do it, go to her retreat, but I don't want to learn Reiki. And I kept hearing, you're going to go to the retreat, you're going to go to the retreat. And next thing I know, she's offering me the retreat. Well, I went there not to learn Reiki, but to learn about energy. And in that attunement in my Reiki training, I had this past life come through, this hanging that happened. I was foaming at the mouth and like all this
Wow.
crazy shit, and I was scared out of
Ooh, you
my
just gave me the chills.
I was scared out of my mind. I would, that's when it started. I would go to sleep. I would hear like knocking on my bed. I would have energies like permeate me. Like I was in the very beginnings of like understanding all of this stuff. And I have a lot of spiritual friends, and a lot of them were energy workers at the time, and they were telling me what to do. And I mean, literally, I was sleeping with like, I was like hardly sleeping. Like I
Were you
didn't
like
know what
every
I
minute,
was
like, who is that?
doing. But at the same time, I was also having visions. And my dad came through one night in a dream, and it was starting. All of it was starting. And then I remember I saw a show on ayahuasca. I knew nothing about ayahuasca.
Yeah, I was really excited to hear how
I,
you even got started with
I
that.
knew nothing about it. I mean, I went on this whole journey about Jesus. I wanted to know where Jesus disappeared to. What did Jesus do? And then I'm like, Jesus did Reiki. Like, it's like one bread coming, one bread coming, one bread coming.
Yeah,
And I
down the
remember this,
rabbit hole we go.
yeah, just down and down the road hole we go. It's true. And I had a knowing I was going to do ayahuasca. And then I found Rhythmia Life Advancement Center in Costa Rica. And the moment I saw the logo, like my whole body lit up, and I knew that's where I was going. And I said to myself, how am I going to do a class one hallucinogenic in another country, like all by myself? Like
How
how
is
is
that
that?
going to happen? I've never done it before, and it's
Never
like,
done it before. And at the time, like I wanted to heal my relationship with my mother. I wanted to heal my relationship with alcohol. I wanted to heal trauma that I had. I wanted to like heal things. I was just wanting to heal. And I went to a networking event, and I was looking for, at the time I said to the universe, I need to meet someone to help me with my financial stuff. My marriage left all these things undone. Well, that night I met this woman, Stephanie, who introduced me to this woman, Amy. And I went to meet this woman, Amy, and she just came back from a Reiki retreat. And like, she's like, you need to meet Rayanne. And Rayanne was a Reiki teacher and a business coach. And she offered to work with me for free if I, and next thing I know, she's like, do you want to do trade? And I said, yeah. And next thing I know, I'm going to this conference down in Florida. I walk in the front door, I meet the owner. He looks at me, I look at him, and this energy bolt goes through my head and out my heart. The same thing happens to him. And he said, do you feel that? And I said, yes, I do. And I wound up having a little relationship with him. And he invited me. He said to he called me after that retreat. And he said, I just need to know and talk about what happened. I need to know you more. And he said, I don't normally tell people this, but I'm down in, I forget where he was, down somewhere in South America doing ayahuasca. He goes, I don't ever tell anyone that, but I feel like I can tell you that. And I said, I'm going to do ayahuasca. I'm going to go to Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. I don't know when, but that's where I'm going to
that's where
go.
you're going.
He goes, Pamela, I'm going there in the fall. And I'm like,
Wow.
what? Well, nobody even knows Rhythmia. Like no one talks about it. And I wound up having this little relationship with him. He was in still is in a group called the Transformational Leadership Council. It's a bunch of high conscious individuals who are creating impact on the planet. He goes, one of the owners of Rhythmia is in my group, and they're shutting the whole place down.
Mm.
And it's going to be 40 high conscious individuals. I would love for you
Wow.
to guest. You'd have to pay your own way. Originally, he invited me as his guest, as his girlfriend, but then he said, when we were just friends, he's like, you just have to pay your own way, get down there, and we can do it, it'll be amazing. And I was like, yes, of course.
Yes.
Normally there's like 90 to 100 people there who are going to try and, rid themselves of addiction or all these
Yeah.
things. So when you're that open, there's so many things like flying around and being released. And here Spirit was like, here you go. Here you go. You're going to be with these
Planted it
40
right in your lap. Right? It was so
who
easy.
are already doing work. They're already doing work. So I did that. It was hard as fuck.
I'm
hard
sure it
as
was so hard.
hard as fuck. There was such a trust. of knowing. And I had this beautiful woman, this older woman, her name was Morningstar. She almost mothered me. It was it was the most amazing experience. I'm telling you, I made beautiful relationships. And by the end of the 4 week night, we journeyed every night a couple times.
How long were you there? 4 weeks?
No, no, no. I was there for 7 days.
Oh, 7 days. Okay. Oh,
We,
4 days of the week. Got it.
yeah.
I was
And
like,
on the
4 week
last,
ayahuasca, man.
I would come flying on a magic carpet home.
You would. You'd be like running the ceremony after the end.
I would be like, people, get in here, sit down. By the last night, they did a breathwork class. Everyone's like, by the time the week's over, you're completely vegan. You're flying high. Your vibration is so high.
Yeah.
And we did this breathwork class. They spray a little ayahuasca in your mouth.
Oh, I heard that's wonderful. That
amazing,
feeling.
amazing. And so we're doing like a breathwork, almost like a kundalini, you know. And suddenly, this light goes through my third eye, crackle, crackle, crackle my head, and I heard, your psychic abilities have been enhanced. From now on, everything will have, excuse me, I'm getting called, everything has changed. And I was like, oh. Now, in the beginning of my awakening, I didn't say this, right after my father died, I was in a REM state. I was sleeping and my brain was off, but my consciousness was open. And I remember seeing this pinpoint of light, and I was able to fixate on it. And this light came through and filled my body with source energy. So the same thing happened after this week-long journey.
Would you say that you probably opened up your channel through the ayahuasca fully, like a kundalini, to be able to receive?
Well, what I did was I released a ton of past life trauma and trauma from this life. I actually healed energy that was I had 2 different experiences where I healed energy that got transmitted to my daughter, to each one of my daughters. There were 2 different experiences. There was sexual trauma energy that came through me from a past life, and kind of the energy of that went into my one daughter. And then something very similar happened to my other daughter. And I healed, I did generational healing. Like it's unbelievable what you do. It's so profound, amazing. The work, it's unbelievable. So then
I love these stories. Every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, maybe a little closer.
Well, I'm starting to feel the call again, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But that was in November of 2019. And then I came back, and then it was the pandemic. And I didn't do what everyone else did. I didn't sit there glued in front of the television. Like, I understand that there's something larger in place here, and I didn't get caught up in all of the nonsense that is, the intention.
You didn't really buy into it from the beginning.
No, like, I understood it because I've had COVID 3 times, but it's a bigger thing happening to the planet. There was like a different shift that was happening. That's a whole other story.
Right.
But what I did was get I said, this is the time for me to go within, not to get caught in externally. I need to go within. And I had a friend that was on the ayahuasca journey, Panache Desai. And he was doing a global meditation every morning at 9 a.m. He was giving himself to support humanity. So I was doing that with him. And then I started just meditating every morning. And suddenly I started having these experiences with different beings. And I started having this energy shoot into my head and go down the back of my neck. And I had all this pressure in the back of my neck. And that's a story that's related to how I met Lisa. But then suddenly I had one day this zoom come into my head, and I felt my vibration raise, and I felt this energy come down, and I felt this exchange happen. And it was like almost like a zap.
Yeah.
I had to experience that because it just kind of like elevated my ability to connect. It's hard to explain, but at the same time, I was continuing the work that I did with Aya, because she's still with you. She doesn't leave you.
The mother, yes. I heard she's a strong medicine.
Yeah. So I was continuing that work, and I was actually doing shadow work. I was releasing all these past life deaths myself. I was drowned. I was hung. I was all these things. I was like a fly on the wall, like watching myself go through this, like weeping, crying, like snot running down it, releasing more trauma, rising my vibration, more trauma, I have it recorded and journaled. It was amazing. The more I released, the higher vibration. And they know what's going on. I work with the Great Council of Light. They know what's going on. They know what's going on with the planet. They know the light workers need to all step up to support humankind right now. So the work that I was doing, they were completely in support of all of that. They needed me to get that fucking trauma out, to get this
right.
done.
So like, come on, girl, we need
Yeah,
you.
I'm
Well, it's funny
serious.
that you say this like energetic, like it's almost, did you find it painful when that came through at first?
No, what I had was a lot of pressure in my atlas. So, and when Lisa's on, she can talk to the atlas because
Yeah.
it's an incredible thing.
And I know
But
that affected her tremendously with
yeah,
her. Yeah.
yeah, she had a near death experience because of it. One of two, not just because of the atlas.
Yeah.
But anyway, then I started hearing things at night, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and have galactic beings next to my bed and transferring energy into me. And it was crazy. I was experiencing beings. I was experiencing their vibration. I was experiencing their language. I was seeing them. I was drawing them. Like I was
Amazing.
joking with my friends that I felt like I was a galactic like highway. Like I
Were
was
you
cool.
scared at all? Did this anything ever frighten
Yeah,
you? Yeah.
I was scared. I was like, I woke up and there were two grays next to my bed. I mean, like standing there staring at me. And I was like, like, I mean, like, I'm telling you, there was a lot, there was like, I don't know, 2 years where I had like nighttime was like terrible for me.
Would you keep
But
lights on or anything? Did you have to like, no, you were just like, you just kind of allowed at some point to like just trust.
everyone that I worked with said, Pamela, this is you experiencing all the sides of it. You have to understand everything, all the contrast, all the differences, so you can understand it.
I love it.
One night, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I heard spirit calling, spirit calling, spirit calling. And I was
Like,
like,
what
oh,
is the
okay,
spirit calling?
get my trusty notebook out, my pen. That's what I do every night anyway.
You're
And so
such a good listener because people say, I get these dreams and they're like, I know I'm supposed to write it down, but I'm so tired.
I
So you were
learned.
like, you just passed through the tiredness and just wrote it.
I had to because they were coming frequently. It's like, and I wasn't getting any younger. Like I had to write it down. And so I got up and I wrote it down. The next morning I woke up and I bought the domain. I just bought it and
You're
I put it
awesome.
aside. So then I keep continuing to do this work every day and I'm doing all the shit. And then I keep hearing you're to build a portal for humankind. A glass ceiling is going to break and humans are going to need a place, a soft place to land. They won't know who they are. The world that they live in is not what they thought. They need a place. And I was like, okay.
You're
I'm
like,
going to build
what?
a portal for humankind. I don't even know what a portal is. I never use that word. And I'm like, it's not just going to be a website. It's going
Not
to
a
be
website like I know how to do all the time.
okay. So then, so I'm like, I'm knowing this, and then it's like a year later, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I see, and I have it sketched. I actually just looked at it last evening. I see myself looking at an iPhone, and this little icon goes do 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 do, and it lands on an iPhone screen. And I remember looking at it. I got up, I got my art pencils, and I drew the damn thing because I didn't want to forget. And then, like a couple days later, I had to go into GoDaddy to do something else I forget, for another project.
Yeah.
And I saw Spirit Calling, and I was like, oh, they're the same thing. They're like one and the same. I was like, like the pieces, the breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
like they're coming together.
Isn't it
And
amazing when you start to see it? Oh, it's like the validation. It's just like,
it's
okay,
it's
so
just so.
cool.
Then I'm like moving on in my life, and all kinds of other shit is happening. That's a whole other story. And and I'm hearing I started a business.
Segment one. Segment one.
It's just like a 24 segment, and I keep hearing you need to build a portal. You need to build the portal, and I'm like, I ain't got time for a portal. I just started a business. Like I have all these things, and you need to build a portal. It's time to build the portal. It's time to build the portal. So then finally one day I was like, all right, send me the money, send me the people, send me everything, and I'll be your humble servant. I'll build the portal. Well, then, don't you know Lisa Roche comes in from out of nowhere? I
Because
had
you met
met her.
prior one time long ago,
I
right?
met her one time years ago on the banks of the Cooper River. Both of our kids were in crew. Her husband was the president of the crew club. I had heard about her from mutual friends that were energy people. but I never met her. And that day when I met her on the banks of the river, I walked up to her and I looked at her and I said, I know what you do.
I
She
love
was
that
like,
story. She told me that I know what you do. And she's like, uh-huh.
uh-huh. But she was already practicing. She was
Yeah.
already a healer and an energy worker. And she already knew that I wasn't, she says that I knew I was going to work with Pamela, but she wasn't ready yet. Well, no, I wasn't. I hadn't gone through all the things I had just discussed. Um, so fast forward, Lisa Roche comes out of nowhere. Now I had visited her when I had all that pain in the back of my head. And she said, oh yeah, that's your atlas. I know exactly what you're going through. And she talked me through all that, talked to me about light language. She talked to me about the vibrations and the beings. But I hadn't talked to her in probably like a year. I'm talking twice. I've talked to this woman twice. I don't really know her.
Yeah.
Calls me out of the blue. Pamela, I need to do a new logo, a new brand, a website, messaging for my business. I'm supposed to work with you on it. I said, okay, Lisa, that sounds good. And I'm thinking, well, if she really wants to work with me, like she'll want to invest in this project. Well, she did. While we're working on it, and I've said that I serve clients for over 20 years. I do. I'm a creative intuitive. Before I was even awake, I was always able to tap into my clients in a way that like I tap in like a higher way.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you
I see
mean.
things unfold and I see the ways to do it and I see there's like a creative aspect there.
It's like you get like almost like the foreshadowing in a visual way, kind of like,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah. And with her, like it's on steroids. It was like we were both like plugged in. Here I am now, having gone through what I've gone through. And I've gone through so much since that day. But we worked together to create a brand for her and a website. That was the most beautiful website. It doesn't exist anymore. She just closed her studio. But she would come to me and say, I envision light. I'm like, I just put light balls in your, like we were seeing the same thing at the same time, but not communicating about it.
Yeah.
So one day she comes to me and I had never explained any of my story and my spirit calling to her. She comes to me, we're on a team call, and she said, Pamela, can you talk and hang on after the call? I want to discuss something with you. Sure. What's up? Pamela, I had a download last evening that we're supposed to work on a different project together. And I said, yeah. I'm thinking, okay, she's got another project. She's like, we're supposed to build a portal for humankind through their awakening process.
My
And I started
gosh.
eyes out. And when these synchronicities happen, you're just like, huh? Like you're like, I started crying and I was like, I know what it's called. It's called spirit calling. And that's how spirit calling started.
So
We
beautiful.
didn't
It literally
know.
gives me chills. Like I have chills. That's when you know that's
Yeah,
like the truth bumps, you know?
yeah. It is a truth bumps. And it's like, she had a practice, gyrotonics, Reiki master. She was already working and that's her field. Mom, a branding and marketing expert. I have a company with 5 employees. Like I'm a totally different world. And
But all these things had to align just
it had to
right.
align just right.
Right.
And she says, it's she went and taught Reiki on the Sage Staff. I don't know if you've heard of the Sage Staff. She was like a speaker on the Sage Staff. And I, meanwhile, have been a part of these conscious communities. I have a global conscious entrepreneur group. I have people that I met through that ayahuasca experience. And I am on a Zoom call, and there's a new member on this conscious entrepreneur group, and his like little box in Zoom is like ringing out at me. And I'm like, I texted him, I'm like, Tim, we need to meet. There's something that you and I need to do together. Well, don't you know he builds communities, online global
Love it.
communities. And
Right.
Tim is now, by working with him and us investing in this, he helped us outline the whole user experience. This was back a year ago. Then Lisa goes and teaches on the Sage app, and 50 people come to her saying, I need a community. I'm going through a spiritual week. That's how it started. And she
Wow.
built that makeshift Wix app that we're on right now.
Yeah.
And
I'm
ready
familiar
to,
with Wix too. Yeah.
yeah, we're ready to launch our new portal in
Yes.
March.
Yeah. I'm so excited for you
Yeah,
guys. Seriously.
we're so excited. But you know what? Like the synchronicities are incredible. Like we met somebody, I joined this other group, and through that other group, I met this guy who is a monetization expert who builds communities. Like I met him right when we're going live, or not even live, when I need to figure out how this thing's going to make us like Spirit has us
Yeah.
held. Just have to trust. You just
Right.
have to trust, you know?
I mean, and it's funny because there's something, I don't know if this happened to you. I'm assuming that it does, but where I'm new to this. You've done this for a long time. And I remember meeting Lisa and I was telling her, I'm like, I think I'm supposed to do this podcast. And she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know technology. I know how to talk to people, but and she's like, yeah, you're gonna I already feel like she knew it was gonna be there. And it took a long time. And then all of a sudden it was like literally just before the new year, I was ready. And
Yes.
you guys stepped in such a great way for me because I needed that like strong energetic support locally
Mhm.
because trying to have validation, we need validation that I should be doing this.
Absolutely, Dan.
Um,
That's what
so
it
I
is.
thank you for that because you guys were both there for me,
That's
to kind of,
that's what we're supposed to do for each other.
yeah.
That is the circular economy. That is the exchange. And spirit calling is built on the ideology. It's an ideology that we are here all in service. So you honor us, we honor you. You serve our community, and we serve you. We are all here to connect. We are pillars. Since the very beginning, I have always only seen these pillars of light all over the planet. This grid goes on. When Lisa and I talked about it, she saw the same visions. These communities are coming together,
Mm.
and we are circular economy supporting each other through this energetic exchange, and we are serving humankind because humankind needs to be served right now. There's a giant shift, and that's a whole other thing. I have been given
Well, I'm
visions of.
feeling with you because you and I are starting to step into something like that. Just kind of came across me, and I'm like, I already knew that this is why we were supposed to be
Yes.
working together to intertwine communities. So,
Yeah, I give you a platform for you to serve our community members, and you give us a platform for us to serve your community members. I just met with a woman today. It's like everywhere. I mean, it's nonstop. It's everywhere I go. I had lunch with a woman today who has a recruiting and staffing company, who is now a spirit calling member, who's talking about how she can work together to, it's not even the spiritual community. It's like people want to serve something more purposeful. They want to have meaning in their life. They want more. They want more. How can I serve your, how can we? So I have two businesses, and she is looking to create one, and the other, and both of them are aligned. We're like, how can we serve each other's, both of our businesses? It's a different exchange. It's a
mm,
higher level exchange. And the people who are serving selflessly are the people who are going to be successful in the evolution of our planet.
yeah.
The
I
shift
love that
that's,
you said that.
well, it's
There's
true.
like,
You're
yeah,
serving mankind. It's about not what can you do for me, it is
right.
what can I do for you. And then you're in service, then you're in receivership. And when you're in
Yeah,
service, you're able to witness gratitude. And when you're in service, you're externally focused. You know, you see the energy around that?
totally.
I
Oh my
mean,
gosh,
it
so
makes my
much.
whole body fill up.
It's something that just, like you said, stay in the joy. I think
Yeah.
that as soon as we start to think about things and how are we going to make it, and then the fear starts to come in. So if you can just
Yeah.
stay in the love and the joy, I mean, I love staying in this place. And I don't know if you feel like your other business is on a somewhat different timeline. I do feel like I can shift timelines pretty easily now, where before it was like really hard going from like third dimension to like fourth dimension-ish. Now I'm like, it's a nice flow because I can stay in that vibration a lot better than I used to. How
Yeah.
would you say dealing with those energies?
Well,
Experience that, or are you on a different level?
it's very fascinating because simultaneously, both of my businesses are, and one is 4 years young and one is a year young, and they're completely different. They have nothing to do with each other except for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? My energy is in both of them, and I'm leading a team, and it's a wonderful culture, and we're very connected energetically, and we have this like crazy growth right now. We just hired a full-time person. We're hiring another full-time person. We just launched a new arm of our business. We're serving clients like Subaru of America, Penn Entertainment. Like it's up leveling. It's happening at the same time. So I'm launching an updated website in March. I'm launching my website in March. I don't know how I'm
I don't know
doing
how
it.
you're doing it. I don't know how you do it. You and Lisa, I'm like, I don't know how these girls have any more time in their day to do what they do.
Yeah. I know that like
Are
And
you
I
sure you're not cloned?
I know. Can I be cloned?
Well, no,
And I found the love of my life.
oh, yes.
It's like tremendous. And that was a universal connection of faith and honoring the knowing that I was calling him in. I was calling him in. I believed. I had naysayers like people like my mother. It doesn't happen for everyone. Well, you know what's happening for me? Because I believe that it will happen. And I believe that this person that I have identified everything I want in that person, I broke up with someone I cared for tremendously for, but I knew that I knew he wasn't my future. To call in and they were both named David. How crazy is that?
Yes. So
Of
fun.
course they were.
You are so much fun to talk to because it's like, we're going to have to do a part two. I'm not kidding. We might have to do multiple parts.
I'm fine with that.
Seriously.
I
Because we
have
didn't
so
even
much
get into the
stories.
channeling that you do. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, but this was so
Oh, the
good.
channeling is amazing. Yeah.
Well,
We
but
have to.
there's so many layers of you. You're so multi-dimensional that literally, like you said, it's another time, it's another time, it's another
Yes.
time. So
Yes.
we're not, this is not the end of Pamela Downes. So for sure.
No. And I want to invite everyone to come and experience
Yes.
spirit-calling.com.
Yeah, tell us where we can find you
Yeah.
before we end. We if you
Yeah,
want to just,
you can find
and I'll
us on
put it at the
Instagram.
bottom when we
Yeah, I'll
wrap
give
up
you all
too.
the handles.
Yeah.
Our YouTube channel is a really cool. As a member, we have 2 different monthly calls. One is where like different practitioners come in and they talk about how their spiritual awakening led to the work that they're doing today. Another one is, and they're all members of the community. Another one is where we're like leading different things for the community members that they're giving suggestions for. Like we did our spirits resume. We're learning how to manage our energy, like different, people that need to be fed and need understanding and education. There's tools in the portal, there's resources in the portal, there's a vetted, curated group of practitioners and healers. They're amazing. Just by being a community member, you can post anything and you've got this amazing group of healers and practitioners who are supporting you.
Well, and I can vouch for that. I mean, there's literally so much that you guys put in there, like sound meditations, the practitioners group, Reiki, share. Like you guys have done a phenomenal job and you just started for a year. And I mean, I can't wait to see where this goes. So I do highly suggest anyone to come and join the community. I'm there. Lovely people. Like seriously, I can't thank you enough, Pamela and Lisa, for putting yourselves out there to the world to help humanity. So I want to thank my audience for joining in too. Yes. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Conscious Broadcast. And we'll see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful day.